At the same time, Huju and Leon watch the same news reports together. Huju sits there speechless, unable to respond to the endless accusations being thrown at her. The media even claims her collapse was all an act to gain public sympathy. Mr. Lee enters and tells them they must return to the palace immediately. Back at the palace, Queen calmly says the protests cannot be stopped. She seems almost happy, seeing how the people's love for Leon has transformed into hatred. Then she orders the assistant to prepare the meeting room because she intends to gather the entire royal family. A while later, Leon and Huju arrive at the palace. The secretary and Choi immediately guide them toward the meeting hall. Once inside, Leon tells Queen there was no need to summon the entire royal family and that the matter could have been resolved privately between them. Queen explodes in anger, asking how he dared disgrace all of them and bring shame upon the royal family. Then she turns toward Huju and keeps belittling her, insisting she is beneath their status and never belonged among them. Leon is about to defend Huju, but Huju quietly stops him herself. Afterward, Queen throws them both out of the meeting hall. Leon leaves furious, while Huju grows worried, watching how angry he has become. The next morning, the assistant discovers that every department inside the company is suffering losses. Then, the Choi arrives. Even worse news. He tells her a new article has been released, claiming Huju faked her collapse. Outside the palace, crowds of protesters gather and demand that both the prince and princess come out and apologize publicly. At the same time, Prime Minister Mr. Lee arrives at the palace and meets Leon, who has finally reached his limit after all the rumors and accusations. Leon tells Mr. Lee he will personally end all of this himself. He admits that while the marriage may have started with a contract, everything between him and Huju eventually became real. Then, Mr. Lee asks him directly whether he truly intends to seize the throne. Leon looks at him coldly and replies, "If I were planning that, would I actually tell you?" Mr. Lee explains that the kingdom does not need a king unsupported by the people. Then he asks Leon to step down from his role as regent for the young king. But then the story jumps back 5 days earlier to reveal who was truly behind everything. Back when Mr. Lee was investigating Hyuju's poisoning and discovered she had genuinely been poisoned, Queen's spy entered his office. Mr. Lee had already learned that she was responsible for serving the drinks that night. He eventually discovered she had placed poison inside the prince's glass. However, she insists she never knew it was poison and only did it because she desperately needed money. Mr. Lee is shocked, saying Leon may be troublesome, but not to the point where someone would try to murder him. Mr. Lee then goes to confront Queen. He tells her the spy confessed she accepted money from Rung, her own father, making Queen herself a suspect as well. Queen becomes terrified, but Mr. Lee reveals Leon still knows nothing. Then Mr. Lee hands Queen proof that her father was behind the poisoning attempt before leaving. Queen immediately storms to confront her father and shows him the evidence. The Rang horrified when he sees it. Queen completely breaks down, asking how he could even think about murdering the prince, because if the truth were exposed, all of them would be destroyed. But the Rang angrily tells her that is exactly why Leon must disappear. Then he warns her that if people ever discover she was the one responsible for the king's death, she would also be ruined. Through her words, it becomes clear she never intended to kill the king. Her only goal had been to burn the royal decree naming Leon as heir to the throne, but the entire place caught fire unexpectedly. Afterward, Queen goes to Mr. Lee, confused about why he gave the evidence to her instead of showing it to Leon directly. She asks if he did it because he wants Huju for himself. Mr. Lee stays silent, and Queen immediately realizes she is right. She then pulls out the marriage contract and says exposing it would throw the nation into chaos, but Huju herself would remain unharmed. Mr. Lee insists he would never leak the contract, but Queen explains that this is the only way to destroy Leon, and once Leon falls, Mr. Lee would finally have the chance to take Huju for himself. The story then returns to the present, back to the moment Mr. Lee asks Leon to step down as regent. Leon laughs mockingly and tells him his authority is nowhere near enough to demand such a thing, but Mr. Lee replies that he is only fulfilling his duty to protect the crown. Meanwhile, the Choi tells Huju what Mr. Lee said to Leon and admits Mr. Lee crossed the line, especially during such a difficult time. Then, the maid arrives and informs Huju that Queen wishes to see her. When Huju meets Queen, the Queen tells her that everything happening to Leon is her fault and that she has destroyed everything he had. Then she asks Huju what the prince received in return for marrying her. Huju coldly replies, "Didn't you read the contract?" Then she tells Queen that Leon never asked her for anything at all. After saying that, Huju leaves, clearly upset. At the same time, the assistant rushes to Leon and tells him to go see the young king immediately because the Rang is there, trying to force him to sign something that would allow them to expel Leon from the palace. Inside the king's chamber, the lord tells the child king that Leon will destroy the crown and must be removed quickly. When the young king refuses, the lord begins shouting at him, claiming Leon looks down on him and that the people even believe Leon murdered his own brother. The little king bursts into tears. Right then, Leon arrives. The second he sees the lord yelling at the child, he attacks him furiously and demands to know how he dares disrespect the king. Leon orders the lady-in-waiting to take the young king outside. Then he grabs the lord and warns him that if he truly wants him removed from the palace, palace, he will have to kill him first. At that moment, Hyuju arrives and desperately calms Leon down, begging him to let go of the lord. Once Leon releases him, he immediately goes to comfort the young king, who is still crying. Leon suddenly remembers the past from 3 years earlier. Back then, he had been playing with the young king shortly before his older brother died. It turns out Leon had secretly witnessed the argument between Queen and his brother, where the king revealed he planned to give the throne to Leon instead. The young child had overheard everything too and started crying when Queen openly wished for his father's death. Back in the present, Leon hugs the crying child and gently promises he will always stay by his side. That night, Hyuju goes to Leon and tells him not to give up. She says if he truly wants to protect something he loves, he must keep fighting for it. Elsewhere, the Choi asks the secretary about the things she personally likes. She falls silent, unable to answer because she spent her entire life caring for others, and nobody ever cared enough to ask about her own preferences before. The next day, Hyuju's brother informs her that the prosecutor has begun investigating every member of the company's board of directors and plans to summon their father for questioning too. Hyuju immediately leaves in her car, with the Choi sitting beside her nervously as she drives recklessly fast. Eventually, she arrives at Mr. Lee's office and asks what she should do about the crisis. Mr. Lee tells her not to do anything because he will protect her himself, but Hyuju becomes angry and tells him she does not want his protection. Then she finally confesses the truth. She loves the prince. After leaving Mr. Lee's office, she goes to her family home. Her entire family is shocked when they find her sitting on the floor, admitting she made mistakes, but begging them to help her. Her father stands up and asks her exactly who she wants them to save, herself or the prince. Hyuju answers without hesitation, "Save the prince. I can save myself." Everyone in the family is stunned that she is thinking about someone other than herself for the first time. Meanwhile, Leon learns from the secretary that Mr. Lee ordered all of his royal duties suspended. Leon immediately tells her not to inform Hyuju about it, but later that night, when Hyuju returns from visiting her family, Leon is left completely shocked when she suddenly asks him for a divorce. The story flashes back to earlier, when Hyuju begged her father to help save Leon. Her father told her the only solution was divorce. He explained that she needed to make herself appear like the greedy one who only wanted power. That way, the people attacking Leon would have nothing left against him and he could regain his position. But Hyuju had already fallen deeply in love with Leon and did not want them to separate. Through tears, she asked her father what she should do if she wanted to save herself instead. He replied that divorce would save her too. Then, he advised her to pull herself out of the hole she had dug before she caused Leon even greater harm. Back in the present, Leon immediately shocked and asks, "What is she saying?" Hyuju explains that they have to separate. She tells him her father is collapsing under the pressure, her company's shares are falling, and even her father is now being investigated. She says she originally married him only to become the heir of her family, but now her entire family and company are being destroyed because of it. She insists she wants to leave with the least amount of damage possible. Leon refuses to believe her. He asks if something happened or if the queen said something that hurt her. Hyuju angrily replies that it is none of his business. Then she continues, saying all the promises he made before marriage failed to come true. Her company is collapsing, her family's reputation has been ruined, and even he himself once admitted that the most important thing for a king is the love of the people, and now he has lost that too. Leon's expression shatters. He quietly begs her not to do this to him and not to abandon him too, but Hyuju insists she is losing everything and cannot stay beside him anymore. Afterward, Leon walks out of the room completely devastated. He goes to the room that once belonged to his older brother, the crown prince, and breaks down crying there. As he sits alone, he remembers the past. Back then, he had spoken with his older brother inside the same room and told him to take care of his wife because life was difficult for her and she depended on him. His brother laughed, saying she did not need him for anything. Leon called him a coward for running away from his responsibilities. His brother laughed again and admitted he was right, then told Leon he hoped he would never end up like him after marriage. Back in the present, Leon wonders if the pain he feels now is the same pain his brother felt back then. The next morning, Hyuju goes to Leon's office and asks if he worked all night. He coldly answers yes and asks what she wants. Hyuju asks him to allow her to attend the next council meeting beside him so she can personally announce their divorce herself. Leon quietly agrees and returns to work. Later, the secretary is left stunned when Choi tells her that Leon and Hyuju are divorcing. She cannot believe the prince agreed to it. Choi says nothing, remembering the conversation he had with Hyuju the previous night. At that time, Hyuju had explained that people had always called her an illegitimate child and shame had followed her since birth, but the prince was different. She begged Hyun to support her when she requested the divorce because it would ultimately protect Leon. Soon after, Leon and Hyuju arrive at the royal council meeting together. The session begins with the lord announcing that Prime Minister Mr. Lee requested the prince step down from his royal duties. But before he can continue, Hyuju suddenly raises her hand and interrupts everyone. She shocks the entire council by announcing that she and the prince are divorcing. Everyone in the room is stunned. Hyuju continues speaking calmly family, saying she planned everything only to obtain royal status, but now she no longer cares if her title is taken away. She reminds them that she was once the prime suspect in the palace fire incident, but because she became part of the royal family, nobody was able to investigate her properly. Then she turns toward Mr. Lee and asks if they would finally be able to investigate her once her royal status is removed. Mr. Lee confirms that they would. Leon stares at her in silence, his eyes practically asking, "What is she doing?" But Hugh continues anyway. She says that whether or not she was responsible for the fire, at least it would prove Leon had nothing to do with any of it. Then she tells Mr. Lee there is no reason to demand that Leon give up his regency because he is innocent. Meanwhile, Hugh's brother holds a press conference at the company headquarters, all part of Hugh's plan. Reporters immediately bombard him with questions about the secret marriage contract, the wedding incident, and whether Hugh faked her collapse. That is when Hugh's brother shocks everyone by revealing for the first time that Hugh was genuinely poisoned. The reporters are stunned because they never knew the truth. Then he points out that everyone has already seen the marriage contract themselves, so did it actually benefit either the prince or the princess in any way? The reporters slowly admit that neither side truly gained anything. Hugh's brother insists the marriage was never fake because Leon and Hugh genuinely love each other. A reporter immediately asks, then why does the contract mention divorce after 3 years? Hugh's brother shocks them again by admitting that the condition was his idea. Everyone in the room is stunned. He explains that he was only worried about his sister and feared the feelings between them might fade one day. Since divorce inside the palace is forbidden, he suggested adding the condition into a private agreement. He also reveals that the contract was never legally registered. Then he apologizes publicly for all the chaos caused by his mistake before ending the conference. Everything was perfectly planned by Hugh. Back at the council meeting, Hugh continues explaining that Leon never gained anything from marrying her and that since they are divorcing anyway, they should restore his position immediately. Mr. Lee then turns toward Leon and asks whether he agrees with all of this. Leon remains silent the entire time, almost as if he is allowing everyone to continue their game freely. Then he glances at the assistant with an unreadable expression, clearly planning something himself. Suddenly, several men enter, carrying a royal decree along with the red robes of the crown prince. To understand what Leon planned, the story flashes back again to the moment he was sitting in his brother's room, remembering his words about not ending up the same way he did. Leon then stood up and opened a hidden box containing the crown prince's ceremonial red robes. After that, he went to visit the young king. The lady-in-waiting tried stopping him because the child was asleep, but Leon ignored her and entered anyway. He softly told the sleeping child, "I'm returning your throne." Back in the present, the men present the royal decree, not from the young king, but from Leon's deceased older brother himself. It is the official will where the late king abdicates the throne in favor of his younger brother, Prince Leon. At the exact same time, the young king publicly announces his own abdication in favor of his uncle, Prince Leon, in front of everyone. The Rang completely loses his mind and demands to know how this happened. He tries rushing to the young king, but Leon stops him cold and asks whether he intends to oppose a royal decree. The Rang freezes, unable to speak. The entire council stands there in absolute shock. Just moments ago, they were trying to force Leon to abandon his regency and royal duties, but in a single instant, Leon completely overturned the table on all of them and became the new king. After leaving the council chamber, Hugh follows Leon outside. Before she can speak, he cuts her off angrily and tells her she never trusted him enough to believe he could protect her. Then he walks away, leaving her behind. Meanwhile, when Queen learns what happened, she completely breaks down. She rushes toward her son in fury, but because the child is terrified of her, he locks himself inside his room. The Queen starts trying to break down the door while the lady-in-waiting desperately begs her to stop. Then, Queen horrifyingly declares that she will set the room on fire to force him out. At that moment, Mr. Lee arrives and orders her to return to her room. Through their conversation, it is revealed that when the council offered Leon the royal decree, he actually refused it at first. But according to royal procedure, the offer must be repeated 3 times before acceptance becomes mandatory. Mr. Lee warns Queen that before the next 2 offers